All right, you guys are live.
Chris, I didn't see a warrant list with my packet of stuff here.
So I'm keeping the warrants on the Monday meetings only.
Okay. Well, it was on. This one says Friday. Yeah, it was on the agenda for today.
Oh, I meant to delete that and I just didn't. I'm sorry. If you want it, we can do an adjustment to the agenda.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I saw that too. I was wondering if I missed that. So
I apologize. That's my mistake.
All right. If everybody's ready, then I'll call the meeting to order at 2:00 today, Friday, April 3rd, 2020. Roll call is Selectman Howdy Goodwin.
Here.
Mike Manslilly.
Here.
Mackenzie Jewett.
Here.
Kevin Buck.
Yep.
Myself, Jamie Thurlow. Town Manager Chris Saunders. And Town Clerk Katie Dandurand. All right, adoption of agenda. We will change the remove number 4 on our list on our agenda, which is approval of warrants. You need a motion for that or anything, Chris?
No, that's fine.
No. Okay. And I guess we will go on to regular business, and it's the COVID-19 update. You wanna start, Chris, or have you talked to Keith as well? I forgot to ask you that earlier.
I haven't had a chance. I texted with him very briefly earlier today, but I haven't talked to him on the phone now.
Okay.
So regarding, we can go through the order it's in the memo. So, I mean, overall, there have been no major changes from the personnel standpoint for this meeting. So things are going well. I think the staff is getting into a routine such as it is. It's a weird routine to be in, but people are still able to come in, and that plan has been working. So I think the questions that are before you tonight or before you this afternoon are a discussion about whether you want to pursue anything related to the Trenton Bridge that I wrote in the memo, and then I had was going to request a motion for you to approve boards and committees to meet via remote access. Then we can talk about the library project, and I had a resident request to discuss a public assistance program.
Okay. So if the last time we had spoken about the Trenton Bridge thing, that was just an idea. No one has acted from any town on that at all.
Correct. No one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be sure. Yep.
So I understand right now, per the governor, if you can be stopped and questioned if you have out-of-state plates, that's what's happening right now.
So I can speak to this. Right now, the governor's executive order does have an enforcement component, and so people should only be traveling for essential purposes, and those are listed in the executive order. Stopping people for out-of-state plates, we do not have. So the governor alluded in her press conference that she would be issuing a future order that mandated people traveling into Maine from out of state to quarantine for 14 days. That executive order has not been issued yet, and so currently there is enforcement in the executive order that stands about essential travel, but there's really no reason to stop anybody because they have a license plate from somewhere different.
Got it. Thank you.
One of the things that is being encouraged among all of our first responders and law enforcement is to only get them involved if absolutely necessary. Try to limit unnecessary calls, really only call them if you need them. There's another executive order about burn permits. People aren't required to physically show them to the fire department right now. So we're really trying to limit interactions, because when any of our first responders or law enforcement interact with a person, they're in turn putting themselves at risk. So as far as unnecessary stops, they're really being discouraged.
And I had a question about that. So at the current time, then, there's no mandatory 14-day quarantine for anyone traveling out of state. Is that what you were saying?
Correct. There is not. There has been some indication that it might be forthcoming, but it does not currently exist.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that's something personally that I thought we were already there, and I think that's something that needs to be addressed pretty soon, because we are fortunate, I will say so far, that our numbers have been pretty low around here, but as I looked at the jump before we had that meeting today, and there was quite a significant jump in cases today in the state of Maine, and I think things can change very rapidly. So that would be, I think, somehow that needs to happen sooner than later.
I don't disagree with you. And personally, I was hoping that it was going to come out today, because we're kind of in front of the weekend, and I don't know how travel patterns, if they're still consistent, but at one point in time, we did see more traffic on the weekend. So I hope that it's forthcoming today. I haven't heard anything, any indications on my end other than it's being considered. So as soon as I have more information, I will certainly get it out to you.
All right, thank you.
It's kind of funny. They're still trying to come. I got a request 2 days ago to rent a place for a seasonal rental for a 3-week period starting the middle of May. I discouraged them and they didn't respond back, but there's definitely people that are still thinking about it. So and I mean, that's someone without a place here, obviously. So
we're getting phone calls every day about turning cottages on earlier. I mean, we're a month ahead of our usual schedule at our house. So, I mean, I certainly don't have a problem stopping people and just reminding them what we shouldn't have to, but clearly we do. But
I think
I'm popular, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that if the state did the 14-day quarantine, it would help us out a lot, just because we wouldn't have to try to push it as much locally. But I think definitely with people coming into their summer residence and stuff, as we stated in our letter that we put out there a week or so ago, we need to make sure that we'll welcome them. But everybody, please stay home for 2 weeks and quarantine yourselves, and then once that's done, then everything's fine.
I will say that, Genevieve, I take care of probably 150 to 180 clients on Mount Desert Island. We're in the property care business, and I will say that Seal Harbor, Northeast Harbor look as busy as if it were the 4th of July right now. And they have come up here. They own homes up here, and they're kind of thinking of it as a safe haven or refuge for them. But the truth is, our hospital only has 3 ventilators and 23 beds. So if this does hit pretty hard, we're going to be put in a pretty bad situation. And we just don't have the facilities or the means to take care of them. And my sister works at Seaport, which is in Ellsworth. It's a nursing home, and they've already been told by the local hospital, and I'm not sure if maybe even the state, that if the hospital becomes full, they are required to take any COVID-19 patients where they're the only people in the area that have like the CNA, the nurse background, and the doctor background to take care of those sorts of people. So it's going to be tough for our small communities to handle any sort of volume beyond the people that live here.
I certainly hear that, and I will share the feedback from this meeting or this recording with my staff. These are the concerns that we're seeing from communities up and down the coast. And you hit on something. So one of the things that we've been talking about is how to strike, or on the municipal level locally, is how to strike a balance between making people not feel welcome. And, we don't want to alienate people. We don't want to make people feel like they aren't welcome here. And I think stressing that scarcity of resources is how we do that. I mean, we have extremely limited medical services on the islands, on the coast, in our rural communities. And really sort of putting that out realistically as these are our reasons does a lot to try to balance that message for anybody who may be concerned about that. So thank you for sharing that with me, and I will absolutely bring this conversation forward. We're seeing the same thing here on Deer Isle. I mean, our caretakers, our plumbers, people are calling the town office. Another thing we've talked about here is how to so people are here. I mean, that's just a fact. That's happening. We all know that. As to how to get information out there about what's available to them. I don't know if you have over there, like we do, we have some stores that are doing deliveries, things of that nature, so that people can still get the things they need while they quarantine. So you certainly, don't want to have any person-to-person interaction, but, if you call this store, we can leave groceries on your doorstep. Please call your caretaker or plumber before you arrive so that we can get your water turned on before you're on the premises. So asking people to quarantine, but also making sure they have the things they need so that they can quarantine.
We're also offering, because we're in the property care business and we take care of properties, we're offering a service where we'll drop stuff off. Just pay it. We'll bill you later for it. Send us a grocery list. We'll drop it off on your doorstep, and we'll bill you later for it. We'd rather not have you in the out in the community, in the general public, because that can become an issue. And we're trying to discourage people from that and just letting them know that, there are people out there that are willing to help you through this time. We do realize that you own this property. You have some property rights, but please be respectful of our area. You're coming from the hot zone, so to speak. And we really don't want that here. So that's kind of the message I've been pushing. And not just to my clients, but to my employees as well. We have a one employee in our building at a time policy now that's been administered. We're posted, we're marked, call phone numbers, vendors, other contractors you're not allowed in our garage or in our shop. Just one person at a time. And we have a sanitization process that we go through every day. Doorknobs, bathrooms, everything in our shop sanitized. We're providing. We have actually someone from Deer Isle, my cousin Trisha Morris. She's knitting face masks for all my workers. I told her, I said, 300 we'll take $300 worth of reusable face masks, and all employees are provided with disposable gloves. They're required to, if they're going to work for me, to not go in any stores, gas stations, hardware stores, anything like that when they're at work. Unless they have to use the bathroom, they're to stay in the vehicle or work on the property, and that is it. And no client or vendor interaction. So we've had to change things a little bit, but I think if everybody just did a little bit of that, we'd be a lot better off.
Thank you so much. You're doing an excellent job. We're going to use you as a model. I mean, it's nice to see you have all these things in place. You covered every base. Oh, I don't know what my screen just went to.
It'll be Keith.
Just Keith.
Yeah.
Yellow snake.
I also asked Rosie Madera to be here. She's our town's health officer, if you guys haven't met her in person yet. Rosie, do you have anything to add as far as things that the town can be doing to take adequate precautions?
I mean, I think everybody's doing what they can. I think the idea of more like grocery delivery, if that's something that we can step up. I mean, I don't know how, who or how that would happen, but I feel like that's probably one of the biggest challenges for most people. I ran out of one thing, and it's I'm only going to run in for that one thing, and it's too easy to just say I'll be quick and it's not a big deal. But the more we minimize that, it will end up making a huge difference. I think the idea of a 14-day quarantine for people who are coming from away, whether it's state mandated or not, I think people in general know that that's what they should be doing. And I don't know how it would, how much it would take to make that mandatory without the state making it mandatory. I don't really know, but we can certainly strongly request that people quarantine for 14 days when they get here.
I don't believe we can do that. I know that city councils have been doing it further south, but I don't think a board of selectmen's got that authority. Does that sound right, Chris?
Well, I mean, I'll take Bar Harbor as an example. They've been urging people in the strongest possible terms, much like you did in your letter, to quarantine if they're coming from away. But, you're exactly right. I don't think that you have either the legal basis on which to enforce it, and then practically, I don't know how you would enforce it. I don't know, how do you monitor people?
So I'm certainly not legal counsel, and this shouldn't be interpreted as such, but North Haven tried to enact something through their select board that was essentially a quarantine and didn't allow out-of-state residents, seasonal residents onto their island, and they did run into a legal challenge and were contacted and told that they needed to rescind their orders. So that may be indicative of the powers that municipalities have to enforce something like that.
We do have chainsaws and trees, though.
Oh, don't get me started.
Can we, is there any reason why we couldn't take, both areas where we enter Southwest Harbor and just post a suggestive sign on our entering Tremont sign or near that area where the town line is that says, we're suggesting anyone coming from away, an information sign, blue and white or green and white that just says we're suggesting at this time, we're suggesting a 14-day quarantine for any visitors to our area from out of state.
We have done that in Deer Isle. It's not that specific language. It says something that's it's a pretty soft hit. It's like, Healthy Island Project encourages you to stay safe and shelter in place. I do think we have the legal authority to put up additional signage. That is something that we've discussed here. So let's see, I was just talking with Swans Island, all of their sort of swing boards that they use to put up notices have, please quarantine for 14 days upon arrival. So there certainly are municipalities that are doing that.
That one, Genevieve, is it the head of Deer Isle, or is it just is it as you come on the island?
We have three. We have sort of three major intersections. So there's one at the head of the island as soon as you cross the bridge, one where 15 and 15A split, and then one just outside of downtown Stonington, downtown being a relative term.
That's fine.
Well, I was thinking probably if we did something like that, the most effective place would be up around Thompson Island as you come.
Right, at the head of the island.
Yeah.
But then we would need other towns to be on board with that, wouldn't we, Chris?
At least the town of Trenton.
Yeah. Well, the town of Bar Harbor, actually.
No,
we did it.
The bridge is in Trenton.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got a feeling that wouldn't be a big hurdle to get over. I don't think we'd have any.
I agree. I think all the towns really have to band together with this. I mean, it's a small community, and if we all sort of, all of the towns stick together, I think we can all agree that a sign isn't the worst thing in the world.
I agree.
I think all the towns on the island are pretty much heading the same direction.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit difference in degree of how strongly, but I think we're all pretty much right there.
How do we get our small gas stations / grocery stores that we have, two of them, and the one in Southwest Harbor, to come on board with more delivery-based grocery shopping, so that we don't have these people just flooding our stores? Because if you drive to Southwest Food Mart on any given day, there's 6 or 7 out-of-state plates this week. I haven't been in there, but I just drove through the parking lot and took a look. I haven't been doing shopping, but they're definitely here.
So within the executive order, there is language about how many people can be within a building of certain square feet. So hopefully they are abiding by that standard, and they certainly should be. I know here one of our stores is only 5 people and one of our stores is 15 people. So that doesn't speak directly to what your question was, but that is one component that places should be following, and that applies to, grocery stores, gas stations, convenience stores, things of that nature.
I think for what you're talking about, Mike, you're almost going to have volunteers.
Well, I was just wondering.
I think the stores are probably having a hard trouble keeping staff in the store, let alone expecting them to deliver. But I do know there are groups of people that have said they're willing to do that. So I think that might be the way to deal with that. I think it's a great idea, and make sure that everyone knows it's available.
I know like Island Connections has helped some of the older people on the island and things in the past, and we could probably reach out to them and just say, I was in the store yesterday and there was someone probably in their 70s or 80s shopping, and they're of course at much higher risk than the younger generation. If we could just reach out to them and say, look, this is what we're trying to do in town. We're trying to work with people on this. Could you take the people that you serve and just say, we're going to offer food delivery, which they may already be doing. And, maybe if we have some volunteers on the fire department or something like that, that would be willing to do similar. I don't know how many volunteers we have right now in Tremont, but just to get the word out there and, help out those that are most vulnerable to something like this and susceptible to, potentially getting really hurt or dying.
I think the curbside pickup seems to be working out really well in a lot of places. I heard GOTS was doing it for a little bit. I haven't seen it myself, so I'm not sure, but I think that's something that can be done without having to set up a ton of deliveries and stuff. This is not for people who are already sick, but just to prevent people from going in the stores. And if you could pull up to a door and hand your credit card and grab the stuff you need or whatever, then that's better than having to go inside the store any day, for sure.
We're of course we're wearing, like I said, rubber gloves when the guys pump gas. I bought a whole case of rubber gloves, but we're also calling them because we charge fuel there. My workers are advised to call them, let them know what truck it's in and their name, and leave. No going in the store and signing for gas anymore. And they've been very good about that. I said it's not so much just for their health as it is everybody else on the crew and everybody that they're in contact with. So I just think that's going to be the way of the future for a while.
GOTS is also sticking with the 5-person in the store limit. They have a sign on the door and they are physically counting people as you go in and out and saying, no, you can't come in, there's too many people. And the Food Mart also. I don't know about the other store in Tremont. I haven't been by there, but I think the stores are doing their part. And I do think that both of those places you can call in your order and they'll leave it outside for you.
Mm-hmm.
So they are, I think they're trying.
Are convenience stores that are attached to gas stations included in that list of number of people per square foot?
I believe that they are. Any essential business that is still operating is supposed to have these safety protocols in place. Anything that has any public-facing component.
And if we're concerned that a business is not complying, is there a referral service, or how do we?
Oh, so this is where it gets trickier. So I had a business in this district that is still open, and I was contacted by one of their safety personnel to essentially report that they weren't following safety protocols. Now, this was a couple of weeks ago, so things didn't have as much teeth as they do now. There is a DOL hotline for the Department of Labor, and there is, you can contact OSHA for workplaces. I would suggest if you see something like that occurring, that you email me, reach out to me, and let me run it down through my end. It gets a little tricky when you talk about the enforcement piece. Now with the new executive order, there is a law enforcement component, but it may, depending on how, if it's a terrible, certainly call local law enforcement. But if it's something not immediate, I would contact me.
Okay, thank you.
So what is everybody's ideas for, do you think we should put up some signage, or just trying to think of anything we should do this week?
I think we should put some signs up in our town, and we should immediately contact like Bar Harbor, because they have, they're the head of the island border there, and just say, would you be comfortable with us placing one of these signs at the head of the island? And maybe it can be generic enough that, if we order it pretty soon, that they'll be happy with it for their area too. It just cover the whole island. But for what little it costs to do it, it's just it's good insurance to have.
How long would it take you, Chris, to have one of the signs made up from the company we use to?
Typically, the company we use has about a 2-week turnaround. I don't know if they could do a rush.
Yeah, because I think, and just my opinion, but I think that in the next couple of weeks we're probably gonna see things really peak up. So I would think it would be best used if we could put something up immediately. So
Yeah.
even around town, even if I don't know if there's such thing as a homemade sign, but or something, if we could do something to put on the seawall side, up the back way, and then also going in the southwest by the Gotts Bridge. If we could just put something up that said, please quarantine for 14 days. I don't know if I would say we encourage you to. I would just say, please quarantine we wouldn't be demanding them to do it. We would just be asking them to please quarantine for 14 days if you have been out of state at all.
And again, I think as soon as possible. And if we have to, shop around a little bit to find somebody to do that, this is an emergency in my opinion. And whoever we can get that's going to be the most responsive and get on it right away. I mean, I've got several different sign companies I've used for my truck's lettering and for my sign. And if we could reach out to a couple of them and just say, what's your turnaround? When can you have these in our hands and installed? Whether we do it or our public works crew does it, let's get those up there and make that our number one priority.
What about at the head of the island, not necessarily having a sign made, but one of the big DOT digital signs that they put out, for construction and stuff like that?
It's a very good idea.
That's awesome.
I mean, that we could probably get quicker.
Yep.
And I mean, we may not have signs made, but how would we? I mean, they've had them on the other side of the bridge when, construction in Bar Harbor had been going on and stuff like that to sort of warn people of detours and stuff like that. That'd be awesome at the head of the island. Mm-hmm. I don't know where you get it or how you get it, but
even if we can't get it from the DOT, I believe, I'm not positive on this, but I think United Rentals, you can actually rent those.
Oh.
Those mobile units. They used to anyway. So that'd be worth checking. Sunbelt Rentals or United Rentals or any one of those companies. See if they have one available, and that way if people are coming at night, which they probably will, I'm sure they are, they will see that. It could just
I have my own contacts at DOT, and I'm sure Genevieve does as well.
So 2 thoughts on this. One is that I think you probably could contact DOT and get one of their signs. I believe they are using their signs on the highway for messaging. And then the other thing is that we used vinyl banners here, and the turnaround time was 48 hours to have them printed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I weigh in real quick?
Yes, go ahead.
I was here looking while you guys were talking, and I've gone into a number of online sign locations, and they've got pre-made sign for coronavirus stuff. You can just order them, and they'll put them on FedEx.
Mike, could you email
banners, road signs, all kinds of stuff like that.
Could you email me a couple of those links that you're seeing?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Go away in big letters.
I haven't looked at all of them. Some are designed to be in workplaces, but clearly others are designed to be on a message board, something like that. So yeah, I can send those to you, Chris.
Thank you.
I think that's a really good idea, Mackenzie, to put something at the peninsula when you first come on the head of the island there, or on Thompson's Island or wherever you could, just to have something there. It would show up. I never even thought of it being dark, and then it would show up good, and that's a good idea.
And then you can change the message as you need to. Today we say something, and maybe tomorrow is a whole different story. So you would, you'd have a little bit more options to play with.
I see Keith is raising his hand.
Okay, Keith.
So I think if you guys reach out to Jim Willis over in Bar Harbor Mount Desert, they have an electronic signboard that they've been using rating Stonesville all week. Maybe it can be a joint effort and save all the, you know where I'm going with that. I just call them, make the call, and it should be, I guess it'd be up to them if they want to lend it to us. So.
Mm-hmm.
I also think Chris, you'd probably have pretty good luck with, Title Graphics or more signs or someone like that that's local. They would probably get right on it right away too. We told them that, that it's something urgent. Is this something you could turn around in a day or two?
All right. So does everybody agree that we think we should have look into either Bar Harbor or the town of Bar Harbor, or the DOT to put a digital sign up at the head of the island somewheres, and also, what do you think? Maybe 3 signs, banners, or whatever Chris can come up with to put at all of our town lines.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Me too.
Sure.
One coming off of the seawall loop, one by Gott's Bridge, and one up in Pretty Marsh, and then maybe one by the triangle by the town office, maybe even on the town message board as well. I mean, that's the best use of that we can make of it right now. There's enough room.
If we had a digital message board, Chris, and we'd be all set. I know that's.
I do think that, especially as we're moving to Zoom meetings, my first inclination is to keep the message board showing meetings, because it's harder, I think, for folks to engage with meetings than when they're in person. So if possible, I'd like to keep that board showing when meetings will occur. But if you guys, I don't feel that strongly about it. That was my first thought.
Okay.
I think if we can show that somewhere in that vicinity by the town office, even if we had it stuck to the town office sign, it shows that, we're really pushing this. It's not just, it's important to us, basically, as a town, as a whole.
I don't care if we had to rent one, like you said, from Sunbelt, or whoever could rent one of those road signs. If we had to for ourselves, just to put up coming in by like the Gott's Bridge, like you said, right where I always call it the Gott's Bridge, whatever the bridge is, but going over to Southwest, put it right there, and it would be, you would definitely get the message, I guess.
One there and a couple, not lit up ones at Seawall and Pretty Marsh, and maybe one in that downtown triangle area, just to really, really promote that. And I don't know as we really worry about, we just give Chris the authority to spend that money as we need to make it effective.
Yeah, we've got a budget line for signs, so that's not a problem.
If we had to, if it's going to cost us a couple $1,000s to rent one or whatever they're charging, let's just do it and make it work.
Well, can I ask? Is it
you put on our little speed sign? The little digital speed sign that we move around town. You can't get much on it, can you?
No.
Not really. Okay.
But
that's what I thought.
Is there if I can get 3 or 4 metal signs or banners in the next day or two, does that accomplish what you want, or do you guys really have a preference for one of those rented digital signs from like Sunbelt?
I would go with 4 of the metal signs.
Okay.
We know we need at least 3. Let's get 4. We can put the 4th one somewhere, and let's try to get the digital sign too, and let's just be as effective as we can about it. I mean, this is peanuts compared to what it's going to do to us in the long run if these people are getting out in the public. And I would rather spend a couple pennies now to save thousands later.
And I think you could probably get in touch with the other town managers on the island, and I think they would be all for a digital sign at the head of the island. I think you could get all of the towns.
Yeah, it sounds like Jim Willis, like Bar Harbor has one. So
Yeah.
That's my feeling too. I think a few metal signs around, 4 if you want, Mike, and an electronic sign at the head of the island. I don't think we need to beat up everyone too much. Either they can pay attention or they're not.
And if the other towns, Chris, if it's going to take an extended period of time to, figure out who's paying what and who's paying this for the digital thing, as long as one of us pays it, we'll worry about getting the money later, I think. Let's just get it out there and make it effective. It's important. As long as we get Bar Harbor's verbal okay, I'd say go for it.
Okay, so does everybody agree we will ask Chris to contact Bar Harbor and the state DOT to put up a digital sign at the head of the island, and then have him get 4 banners or metal signs to put up around town at each of our inlets, each of our main roads.
Is that a motion?
Can be.
I actually would, if the turnaround time's more or less the same, I'd prefer the metal signs than
Okay.
a great big banner myself.
Yep.
personally.
Okay, 4 metal signs, we'll say, and that was a motion.
Second.
Cool.
Been moved and seconded to ask Chris, the town manager, to contact the town of Bar Harbor or the DOT to put up a digital sign at the head of the island, warning people to please quarantine for 14 days if they've had any out-of-state travel, and also to have 4 metal signs made up, if you can have a metal, I should say. Do as you need to.
Just say 4
quickly
signs.
as possible. 4 signs as quickly as possible to put up on our main roads coming into town. Is there any discussion?
That was almost as long as the memos that Chris writes up for us to make motions on.
Yeah. Okay, Kevin.
Let's do that one more time, Jamie.
No, I'm not. I forgot it. All right, all those in favor, Howdy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
and myself is yes. All right, is there anything else you guys would like to add into things we could do around town before we move on to the library? I think we were going to do next.
I'm just going to, Chris, just clarification. You're planning on the town office continuing as we have been.
Yes.
You know, any new declarations aren't going to affect that at this point.
At this point, unless we got a much more restrictive order from the governor. Currently, I believe that all of our office functions fall under the essential category, and so I'm not too worried about that.
Okay.
If it was limited to groceries and healthcare, then we might be in a different situation, but so far that hasn't happened.
Okay, good. Just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Chris,
Or
have
we
you
had
had any GA requests or anybody coming to the town worried about how they're paying bills yet?
I have not had anyone in that category. I have had one resident approach me to say that they want the town to make some kind of public assistance available, even more so than GA. And that was one of the things that I was hoping to talk about during this meeting with you.
Oh, okay. I'll be quiet then.
No, that's all right. We can go right on to that if you want, just to go through it. I think
Sure.
as long as everybody's to kind of go along with what Kevin had said. Also, if something does change rapidly, like we talked about before, say there's a bunch of cases show up in Hancock County tomorrow, then I think we should, we want to make sure that we give the flexibility to be able to shut down the town crew immediately if we feel like we have to. That's what we had said before.
Yeah, you've already made a motion to that effect.
Yeah, just want to make sure we're all on the same page with it, though. I mean, hopefully it never happens, but if it does, then we just want to be able to do it quickly. All right. You want to give us a briefing on what that resident was looking?
Yeah, so the resident was Ken Olson, and he called yesterday asking, if the town could make some kind of public assistance available. He was specifically, he'd seen on the news that Bucksport had done something along these lines. As far as I understand it, I think they're still working out their details. But what Bucksport has done is they're using their unassigned fund balance, which for them is about $5 million. For reference, for us, we have about $500,000. And they're essentially making assistance available to residents, so they can get grocery gift cards to 2 grocery stores in town, things along those lines. For us, I've been trying to think about how we could, if you were interested in pursuing this, how Tremont could do something similar. I don't know how Bucksport is using their unassigned fund balance. They may already have authority from their town meeting to spend out of that without further approval from voters. I know that the town of Tremont does not have that authority. So you cannot just spend out of that unassigned fund balance without voter approval. However, what you do have access to is your contingency budget, which you have about $12,000 in right now that you can spend at your discretion. And if you wanted to pursue a program like this, then you just let me know what you want.
I actually had just received something today, Chris, from the state regarding certain things like payroll protection programs, workers receiving pay if they're out due to something related to COVID-19. And my thought is right now is we should save that money till we really need it. Obviously there's some people being laid off and stuff and people losing their jobs. I've heard that this, so far from most people, I've heard that the state's been helping them in any way they can. Of course, they're getting overwhelmed too with phone calls, but I would be more inclined to help somebody with something like, maybe putting some money towards the food pantry or something like that, because it's going to be very hard for us to monitor where that money's going. And I think the food pantry are set up. They already have a system to handle this sort of thing. Whereas us handing out gift cards, we don't know who's getting what and where it's going.
You could do something similar out of your contingency fund. You could authorize me to give $3,000 to the Quiet Side Food Pantry, and
I would be really interested in doing something like that, and just obviously hopefully they're still operating and they're complying with the social distancing thing too, because you get a bunch of people in an area grabbing food. It's not always the greatest situation for something like this to spread. So even if we had to give them a little money to encourage deliveries, we'll drop a box on your front doorstep or in your yard, something to make that work and just streamline it a little bit better. But I just don't think us as a town handing out gift cards or things like that, it's going to be really hard to monitor.
If you haven't gotten any general assistance calls or anything like that yet, thankfully we're not there yet.
I have not gotten any.
Good. So that's good. I mean, maybe we don't have to do something like Bucksport right now. Maybe we don't have to get, when the phones start ringing off the hook, for general assistance, then we might have to rethink this. But
yeah, I would tend to hold off until we get. I mean, it may be more with heating oil. Maybe, well, hopefully that'll be going away soon. But I mean, it may not be just food also. If we only have $12,000 in there, it's not going to go very far no matter what we do with it.
No.
I'm in favor of waiting until we find out if there's a need for it.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, Kevin.
No, I agree with all of what everybody has said. That's the same thing I was thinking. Wait until hopefully it doesn't happen. But if it did happen, we started getting more cases locally, then we want to make sure we have that money there to use.
I would agree.
It doesn't happen.
I can say with Jamie that, it wouldn't hurt to reach out to the food pantry and tell them what we're thinking long-term and get a plan in place that if things do get bad, but let's save that money for when things get a heck of a lot worse. I mean, you look at places like New York, and we're going to be on a small scale compared to that, but we're still a small community with a budget every year. And I just assume save that for when we really, really need it. I think generally the people that have lost their jobs or that might be struggling a little bit now, there's probably still help out there for them. So
would you be okay if I did reach out to the food pantry and just shared with them that the select board would be open to a request from them?
Something, my gut feeling on this is if this goes on, as long as there's a really good chance it is, we may have a real hard time paying our bills down the road. I think there's a real good chance that real estate tax payments are going to be way behind this year, more than any year we've experienced in a long time. And I have no problem supporting these, people that need it, but I would almost wait until they came to us, because I don't know where we're going to be in 6 months.
Okay.
I mean, that's my gut feeling on it. And again,
I have to reach out to the food pantry and sort of make a promise that we we can't keep or don't keep, or
Exactly.
ideas in their heads that we can't follow through with yet.
Completely understandable.
And I think if needs start arising, we're going to know about it.
Yeah.
So I don't think we need to go looking for them yet.
Okay.
I agree.
And then I would say from the state's perspective that, we have expanded resources and relief on our end and are hoping for additional federal funding. To Chris, the MMA is looking for feedback from town managers and municipalities about what your needs are. They're putting together a fourth federal package. So I would make sure that you exhausted the resources we can offer you for people before you tapped into your town budgets.
I would agree with that.
Keith is raising his hand.
Okay, Keith.
Hey, I don't mean to spoil the surprise, so keep it amongst the 12 of you, but the Tremont School PTO just went to, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 local businesses, the Food Mart, God, Salt Meadow, Brandon Laura, Drug Store, Catherine, Sips, Hanson's, I don't know, I might have missed a few, but the PTO is going to buy 104, 105 $25 gift certificates to give out to each family within the school. And then they can go and spend however they want to do that. But each of the 95 families inside of the school should be receiving that within the next week. And the school is sending home foods and doing a backpack program, but that misses the whole rest of the community. So I just say, that is happening, going on behind the scenes.
Great.
Good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I know we never know. We could need it for emergency medical, and there's a lot of things that you can think about that we need it.
Yeah.
What we might need it for.
I just think even the regular bills right now may turn into a challenge in a few months.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the library?
Okay, let's move on to the library.
Wouldn't be a Board of Selectmen's meeting without talking about the library. Ever since the governor had her promulgation, we basically shut the library down on construction. Chris was concerned, that we make sure that we follow the law in this case. I've been trying to make a case to Chris that I think the law allows us the flexibility we need to keep this construction. The state deferred to the CISA memo on this, and there are a couple statements that they make that I think can play into this. And they talk about the list of critical infrastructure and what stays open and that sort of thing. And first of all, it's not. I'll just read you what their own memorandum says. It says this list is advisory in nature. It is not, nor should be considered a federal directive or standard. Additionally, this advisory list is not intended to be an exclusive list of critical infrastructure sectors, workers, and functions that should continue to the COVID-19 response across all jurisdictions. Individual jurisdictions should add or subtract essential workforce categories based on their own requirements and discretion. So they clearly know that they can't assume that they understand every situation. And what I would maintain is that we have a situation in which continued work on the library does not put the workers at risk, nor does it put the public at risk. The library is closed to the public. In fact, the Board of Trustees of the library are not allowed to go in to that building while workers are in there. And we are, as you know, trying to push this thing through to construction so we can be open. But I also think that if remodeling and construction work has to be stopped for the library, then I can't see how you could justify not shutting down every remodel and construction project in the entire town. And I know a dozen of them within a half a mile of my house. I'm not, just so you understand, I absolutely respect Chris's position and why he took it. I would just like to ask the board to allow us to continue with the construction of the library. And we had told the contractors before this happened that if at any time they felt that they might be at risk, they let us know and we shut it down, and we would continue with that.
So, Jamie, can I?
Just a second, Mike. I was just going to say, can I have Chris just answer one thing first? Chris and I talked about this, what was it, yesterday, I believe, Chris, the day before, whatever it was. And I asked him to contact James. And Can you just give the feedback from what James, our attorney, said before we comment on it?
Sure. Yeah. And I sorry, I'll be a little bit more expansive than that, Jamie. I just want to clarify where I was coming from and what my position has been. First of all, I wanted to make sure that whatever we were doing, that we were, appropriately balancing the need to get this project done. It's been a major priority for a long time, and I really would love to see it wrap up. Worker and safety and staying within the law and doing what's legal. And so when that order first came out, it became a question of, okay, construction is permitted as long as it's for essential services. So is the library essential? And it has been gray. It has not been clear to me one way or the other. And so that's why I reached out to our legal counsel to see if either MMA Legal Services or James could provide some more information. The town attorney, James Collier, had a few things to say. He says, this seems pretty simple to me on the face of it, but it is a trap for the unwary. If you look at the list of essential businesses, they include construction and maintenance of essential infrastructure. And from what I have read on several state and federal websites, government facilities would appear to be part of essential infrastructure. Additionally, many more things are deemed essential than have been deemed non-essential. Mostly, you can't go shopping at some places, can't go to the beach, the barber, etc., but you can do your job as long as you practice social distancing. On the other hand, you and I both know that in the long run, there is nothing essential about a library that is worth someone getting killed over. So I think James has done a good job of showing, both sides of that right there. Now, MMA Legal Services had a similar response. It's very gray. It's not clear one way or the other, but we would probably be okay if we allowed the project to continue. And then finally, I'll just also say that I told Mike yesterday, and I put it into an email to everybody, that this project could continue until you guys made a decision today. So if they decided to put the project on hold, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But I was perfectly fine with the project continuing until you guys made your decision. So if you do
we just thought it would be simpler just to tell them to stop until the decision got made, and
fine.
They were fine with that.
Okay. And so if you guys want the project to continue, I 100% support that. I think it can, like Mike said, it can be done safely. I think you should if you passed a motion to find that the library was an essential service and therefore to allow construction to continue, then that would be just fine.
Mike?
I would just like to speak to that a little bit, Chris, is that I don't think us designating a business as an essential service is really putting us in a good position, because that could set something for other businesses that do similar work in the area. However, if that business thinks that they are essential, they can reach out to the state of Maine Department of Economic and Community Development, and they can apply for a designated essential form, which I have for my business, where I had to list all the services that I do, the type of work, and then the commissioner, Heather Johnson, will designate you official. You get a state sealed document that says you're considered essential. And that's if, of course, the contractor wants to continue to work and the town feels comfortable with it. But that is something that's going on right now. It's been talked about. And I did it because I maintain a lot of properties where there's nobody there that have infrastructure that if it wasn't maintained, they would have bigger problems. And I also take care of some municipal properties in Bar Harbor. And excuse me, I was told by their public works foreman that I'm exempt. I mow their lawns, I take care of their properties, and when I talked to Heather's office here through the state, and gave them all my information, they agreed. So I think rather than us taking that on ourselves, if the library is comfortable with the contractor working, that we push that on to him to get that designation form and get that filled out and get the state to accept it. Right now, the turnaround time is about a day. So I think it's a good chance for him to do that, and I can send you the links and information on that if you'd like.
So I was going to reiterate that. And so what you don't need to determine here is whether or not the library is essential, but the contractor themselves. And construction is being interpreted very broadly. And so there's a great likelihood that it will be approved through the waiver process.
So the contractor would apply for this, not the town?
Not the town, the contractor, the business that is doing the work. If they apply through the waiver process and describe, the project they're working on, what they're doing, what safety protocols they have in place. I can send you that link, or it's really easy to look it up online, but that would be the process. And then you kick it into the state's lap to determine whether or not the project can continue.
Have you guys seen the list that's been circulated around? I've got it here actually on my desk because they included boat building exactly in this one. Let me see if I can hold it up. If I can get it. I'm sure Genevieve, you've seen this, but this list has quite an extensive list of things that are essential. The non-essential businesses are very small on that list. So the governor did a good job this time, at least I think, showing what is essential and what she believed wasn't essential. And on there definitely is construction and maintenance of essential infrastructure.
I found it kind of interesting that they amended that list yesterday or the day before to include gun shops. Mm-hmm. And I would have thought that if a gun shop qualified as an essential business, a library might equally qualify. I would ask this question. I'll be glad to do it, and we'll work with Maine Highlands to go to the state. But Chris had said earlier that he was okay with continuing until that got made. So could I get him back on the job? We'll complete the forms right away. We'll get them in, and if it comes back not, then we absolutely shut it down.
I
don't think there's reason to go through this form. It's pretty straightforward that it's construction, and I think we just let them keep going.
I agree with Howdy. As long as they're practicing the social distancing, as long as they're following the rules, until they come to the library or us and say, I'm uncomfortable with the situation, I want to pull my guys. And I'm assuming they don't have a large crew.
No, I think the largest crew we've ever had in there has been 4 at a time. Right now it's painting and trim work, and that's 3 guys. And when I tried to go in the other day, they stopped me.
Good. So as long as they're clear what the rules are, like you guys have made the rules very clear, this is what we're,
and we would post it. We will post the building saying that it's off limits unless you are, involved in the building work itself. And we've already told the board, don't go there.
I agree with Howdy. Construction has to keep moving. We can't stop everybody and say,
if you shut down all the I'll use the word non-essential. If you shut down all the non-essential construction projects in the state of Maine, you'd throw 100,000 people out of work.
Yeah, we'd be in a mess.
Hammond's is staying open. Gott's and Goodwin's are staying open. Forms are being poured and electricians are going in. So my preference would be for you guys just to nod and say, go ahead, and I'll go ahead.
I don't feel that there's any risk there either. And I got an assistant. Sorry, he's climbing when you get.
Oh, he's so cool.
No, I'm very on board with keeping the job going. I don't think we need to do anything. I think the state's already spelled it out.
Kevin, you want to have that growth looked at?
Something goes.
Now, what we've done at the boat yard is the same thing. We just post the doors, employees only. No one can come in, walk, at least, most of the doors. I know one always gets unlocked from going in and out of it so much in the parts room, but just and try to do the best you can with it, and
Right.
social distancing, and everybody's working in separate ends of the yard, and I think it's, just doing the best we can.
And we'll certainly pay attention. I mean, if new rules come out, we got to take a look at those. Like I say, if the board decides, look, it's not safe anymore, that'll stop. And frankly, if the contractor goes, you know what, we don't feel safe, then it shuts down. But like I say, it's so few people, and they're probably safer being in there 8 hours a day than being anywhere else they could be. So they're not going to come into contact with the public. So
I think we ought to, like you said, post it and encourage, them to follow some sort of sanitization practices with the bathroom and with the doorknobs and things like that.
Yep.
Wiping things down when they leave, so that if the library board does have to go in there, you guys aren't opening yourselves to something someone might have brought in from another town.
Yeah, and we can work with the contractor on that. I know the library has a fair supply of hand sanitizer and the bleach wipes, things like that. And we could just instruct them that, when they come in, they clean the surfaces, and when they leave, any, door handles or light switches and all that kind of stuff have to be wiped down. So we can sure do that.
And as far as Mel's probably the person that's in there the most out of us, how many times are you in there, Mel, in the run of a week?
Mel probably goes by, I would say in general, Mel goes by maybe 2 times a week.
Okay.
Just to check in with the contractor. And frankly, the contractor's son has some medical problems which make him particularly vulnerable. So they've even been limiting that,
Mm-hmm.
to so that the contractor does not come into contact with folks. He's really careful about that, So, and what we can do is if Mel needs to go in, we'll just do that after hours. We knew he needs to go and inspect and look at things and make sure they're being done the right way. He can go in after 5, or he can go in before 7, and so they won't be there.
No, that's a good idea. I think that's a real good idea. I was going to say, otherwise, if Mel was fine with wearing a mask and gloves every time he goes in, just to be extra cautious. We don't want to see. Yeah.
No. And I would encourage. Frankly, I'd encourage them to do that if they can get the face masks, and the gloves like Mike has done for his crew. That's a wise thing to do. Period.
And I can't really, when in the shop, I can ask them to wear them, but when they're on a job, it's kind of tough. It's going to be tough. I'm gonna request it. I'm gonna provide them. They're washable.
Where'd you get yours, Mike?
I have my cousin Trisha down in Pier Isle. She's been making them $8 a piece, and they are washable. And she's making $300 for me. And then I heard my sister had requested her to make some because she works in a nursing home. And I told my sister, I'm like, just put it on my tab. I'll take care of them. But I'm probably going to up it to another $300 once I get the first set. You can't get dust masks right now. Home Depot is required to send them directly to the hospital per, I don't know if it's the state or the federal government telling them to do that. And I wouldn't want to take away from somebody that's working in the medical field anyway. But even in H-Bragg, some of the industrial distributors are doing the same thing. They're required to send them directly to EMTs, hospital staff, and things like that. So a lot of people have taken, of course, to sewing them, and it's better than having nothing over your face. I think when you're in an area that you might be at risk.
Okay, why don't I'll make a motion to allow the construction of the Bass Harbor Memorial Library to continue as long as the building is posted not to allow anyone to come in and current coronavirus standards are followed.
Second.
That was almost as long as mine, Kevin.
No, it wasn't.
It's been moved and seconded to allow the Tremont Library construction to keep moving as long as the corona, what did you call it, protocols are being followed in the, was that about it? Yeah.
And the building's posted, not
The building's posted, yes, to only the construction workers, employees only, however you want to phrase it.
That sounds good.
All right, is there any discussion? All those in favor, Howdy.
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
myself is yes.
Thank you. Mel and I will work with the contractor to make sure all the protocols in place, and we'll get signage up this weekend.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chris.
The last thing that I was going to ask you to do, I think this is a very quick one, is before you had passed a motion to suspend all board and committee meetings just indefinitely. Well, I think it might have been through March 30th. But I think it would be helpful if you passed a motion just to make it clear that boards and committees are welcome to meet via virtual methods such as Zoom or Google Hangouts or something else, just so that's on the record that you guys were okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't there some question of the legality of that when we made the first motion?
Correct. That the governor has made it very clear that virtual meetings are allowed, which is why you're meeting right now virtually.
I thought there was something about the boards was a little different standard. The other boards was a different standard. I thought we had a discussion. Maybe
when we had that discussion, Kevin, it was like 2 or 3 days before she made that.
Okay.
And then we discussed this, and then she made that clarification. What was it? A couple days after, it seemed like, and allowed everything.
Yeah, I don't know of any difference. I don't know if Genevieve might.
No, that's okay. I mean, it's no sense beating that to death. I make a motion to allow all town committees and boards to meet virtually for the duration of the coronavirus emergency.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to allow all town committees to meet virtually until until the coronavirus is
declaration's over or something like that.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, Howdy.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Mackenzie.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
Myself is yes.
All right. Okay. I will put in the minutes that it's until the end of the governor's declared state of emergency. So as soon as that's lifted, then I think you're good.
Mm-hmm. All right. I guess the next thing is the next meeting date.
I'll make a motion to confirm the date of the next meeting for Monday, April 6, 2020 via Zoom with meeting ID 899-857-7726.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to confirm the date of the next meeting for Monday, April 6, 2020 at 5 p.m. That should be on there. Via Zoom with meeting ID number 899-857-7726. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, Howdy.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Mackenzie.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
And myself is yes. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, Howdy.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Mackenzie.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
Myself is yes. Okay. Guess that's it.
All right. With the official end of the meeting, I've drafted the language for the sign to say, if you are coming into Tremont from out of state, please quarantine for 14 days to prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Sounds good to me.
Perfect.
Yep.
Don't break out your English teacher red pens.
Yeah, if you're traveling from out of state to, not just coming from, but if you're traveling from out of state.
See, that's now we've started down the road, Jamie. Now you guys are going to pick apart every word.
Okay.
Or you could say arriving too.
Okay. Never mind.
Just out of state. It's also, what if you're coming from Portland? You might not want to specify out of state.
Right, that's true.
True.
From wherever, please. I don't know. I'll just throw that idea into your court to consider.
From away.
Visitors.
Okay. Well, if I need more guidance, I'll contact your chair.
Okay.
All right.
See you later, everybody.
See you Monday.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Stay
Bye.